to Let's Take 5, the podcast where we take a cinema legend and take 5 of their films. But that doesn't matter, because we're not doing that this time.
We're not doing that this time.
We just took a cinema legend. He's ours now.
Exactly. We usually talk about 5 films that show their excellence in range.
Yeah.
We didn't do that this time.
No.
Not for this podcast.
This is a wrap-up.
This is a wrap-up episode.
This is a wrap-up of Richard Linklater.
Tell me about it.
Well, first I'm going to tell you I'm Austin Luger.
Yeah, I'm Eric Martindale.
And we are here today to wrap up Richard Linklater. In the past 5 weeks, we have covered the films Slacker, Dazed and Confused, Before Sunrise, School of Rock, and Boyhood. Today we're going to talk about what we watched, what we learned, all the films we didn't cover, really. I think, I could be wrong, I've seen all of his films. I think. He doesn't have that many, but I'm excited to do this because...
Well, it takes him 13 years to make them.
Yeah, no.
or a weekend in Vienna.
Yeah, that's all he needs.
Yeah. Not Venice.
No, God. It's so weird. I love the movie. I can't keep those cities, like, the same city in my mind.
Water, man. Water, Italy.
I'm imagining...
Vienna, art, Germany.
I'm picturing Before Sunrise for both of them.
What?
I'm imagining, like, stone roads.
Yeah.
For both of them right now. I cannot keep those two.
I said Germany. I believe it's Austria, so...
Surely don't know.
Yeah. They make good sausages.
We'll find out if my girlfriend, the geography buff, listens to this one.
Anyway, regardless, there is a city called Vienna,
Yeah.
and there's a city called Venice, and we were talking about Vienna.
Right.
Well, we should have been talking about Vienna. I don't know how many times you said Venice, but...
It's wrong all over the board.
I called Kate Blanchett Kurt Russell, so... I'm good.
That's true.
Mine's worse than yours.
All right, so we're here. What do you want to do first? Do you want to rank what we've seen? You want to talk about?
Yeah, well, okay. So the films that we saw were Slacker, Dazed and Confused, Before Sunrise, and School of Rock, and Boyhood. Those are the 5 Richard Linklater films that we covered in this 5. I feel like we should just go ahead and rank these because this was a tradition we'd started doing and then we kind of forgot to do it a couple times. So sadly, we're not going to go back and rank our Pixar 5. So you're just going to have to.
That's how relaxed these wrap-ups are.
Yeah, they're just so relaxed, these wrap-ups. That's why we're talking and we're in our relaxed voices now. It's actually it's usually after a 2-hour recording session.
What?
So yeah. Anyway, let's rank them. You pick the 5, so I'll go first. Is that
what I want to note, because this is not at all against you at all, but this was one that I almost bamboozled you on because you'd only seen one of these going in.
Yeah, I did. I had not seen Richard Linklater, which means I probably shouldn't be doing a film podcast.
Well, I was nervous that you would just hate them all and it would be a really long 5 weeks.
No, that wasn't it. And we'll talk about that after we rank them and why it wasn't. In a lot of ways, it's actually my favorite that we've done. So anyway, right off the bat, Before Sunrise, that's a no-brainer. That's the best film on here for me. From there, I'd go Dazed and Confused, Boyhood, School of Rock, and then way down there somewhere in the deep, dark chasms of film, the annals of film history. Excuse me. Sorry, I almost threw up talking about it. I'd rake Slacker at 100. No, Slacker's the worst film of these 5 that we covered. That's how I would go. Yeah, you will do your 5 and then
well, it's very similar. I would go Before Sunrise, Boyhood, Dazed and Confused, School of Rock, and Slacker. But unlike you, I would give Before Sunrise, Boyhood, and Dazed and Confused all 5 stars, and School of Rock and Slacker get 4 stars. So it's still a very positive roundup
still positive.
Here.
Yeah, okay.
So Slacker is 5th to me, but also I would love to watch with you right now just to see your physical turmoil.
It's just so bad. No, but getting back to like you thinking I would hate the films, I think even Slacker, I said from the very beginning, I was just halfway through and I text Austin and I go, this movie's a miserable pile of shit. I mean, it's once I catch it, I was like, oh, this movie is just so bad. I'm getting angry. but within that, and then you were like, well, let's call an audible and just pick something else maybe. And I was like, I don't want to do that because I feel like it's going to generate good discussion. And I do feel like the Slacker episode felt good. It had a good flow to it. It was nice talking to you about it. I enjoyed airing my laundry about the film and you airing it. The movie does have artistic merit, and I focused on that. It has a lot of that, actually. It just doesn't have a plot. It doesn't have characters, and thus it has a boom mic several times. It's just bad filmmaking, I think. I think that the style is the only thing that I think is good, but you liked it, and I don't know. I thought it generated a good conversation. Way better than the Ace and the Hole fight, which, by the way, no one downloaded that episode. Watch it.
It's still pretty low.
If you want to hear us fight, the downloads are way up, but I'm sure it's not for that episode for some reason.
I was so confident that you would like that film. I was so wrong when you came in.
I hated that movie. So that's a good argument there. Yeah. But anyway, so I'm glad we covered Slacker. I think that the Linklater 5 in general, this is a film... This is a film genius that lends itself towards people having these conversations about his movies. It's just it's an easy, whether I like the movie or not. He's just a really easy special filmmaker to talk about.
Well, and this one was also one a bit like Cate Blanchett 5, where I've been adoring the Before films for quite a while now, but it wasn't until maybe the past year or so, when I saw his new film, Everybody Wants Some, that I realized, oh wait, do I love Linklater? I realized that I think he's made 5 perfect films. I go, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of perfect films.
And I just realized I've just by accident had kind of seen all his films, and I really like him. So it was kind of when I did this one and Cate Blanchett, when you kind of watch them all back to back, whatever, 5 backs. When you recognize their genius. And that's what was kind of really nice to see. It wasn't just I like walking and talking films, more no, this is someone who's really quietly compassionate and makes some pretty impressive art.
Yeah, no, and with Slacker, I saw the genius there. I just thought that it was misplaced and misguided and ultimately a failure. Mm-hmm. But you could see it there. It's like a Shakespeare problem play. It's there.
But if you were Richard Linklater's teacher, would you approach him in the dark room like in Boyhood and tell him all those things?
First of all, Linklater's got more talent as Pinky than I'll ever have. That said, I still can call his. I think I can. There's a legitimate argument for his movie being bad, and Slacker is.
Absolutely.
But it's like I said, it's a really cool film idea that I feel like a very talented amateur film student comes up with, says that I'm going to do that as a movie. That can be a movie, and it can just sustain itself, and wrongly assume that, and get an A for the project because it's A+ for the project because it was done better than anyone else's project, but. I can still, again, give someone an A for an assignment and yet hate the work. And that is essentially what Slacker feels like.
So, now let's talk about the A's in the room, perhaps. When we recorded our Before Sunrise episode, which was a really fun episode with the filmmakers Hank and Asha.
Yeah, it's great.
At that time, it was very fun because when we were recording, we were telling James and Julia... Eric has not seen the sequels. We cannot say any of these things.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, absolutely, no problem. We didn't. We kept it all spoiler-free. I told you, because you loved it, you should really, space them out. You should, I'd watch, one a month.
Yeah.
You did not do that.
I did not do that. Criterion had just released the Criterion, the Blu-ray DVD for the Before trilogy. I now own the trilogy. Prior to finishing this, I bought the trilogy having only seen Before Sunrise.
I think...
I was confident enough in it that...
I think if you have not heard... if you've not seen the Before films, and just want to know that our next 5, wait till the end of last minute of this episode, I think we should talk about the whole trilogy now.
Yeah, no...
let's do some spoilers. If you want to know what our next 5 is, or other kind of stuff, skip ahead a bit, but... Definitely in the last minute of the podcast, we'll tell you what the next 5 is.
Yeah, no, we will. So the Before trilogy clears the bar on so many levels of being not only 3, what I really do feel like are flawless movies. Yep. Flawless efforts, incredible acting, incredible characters, incredible story. Unbelievable. But it also clears in a bar in a very significant way also in being... perhaps the greatest movie trilogy of all time. And I mean, really, that is not hyperbole.
Yeah.
It's like that and Lord of the Rings running pretty close to me, and I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fans. But it's the concise nature of its brilliance. Every hair on the head, so to speak, is just perfect. They're 3 perfect movies. And and a thing for a trilogy that I always look for is flow. Can this be one movie? And that's why I say, well, even though I like Godfather 3 a little bit, I think it's a good movie. Mm-hmm. The other two are masterpieces, but that's not its problem as a trilogy. It just doesn't flow that well as a trilogy. They're cut differently. They have different storytelling devices. One has flashbacks, the other two don't. There are things like that just don't flow. Indiana Jones, the second one's randomly a prequel, and they don't talk about the events of the other films. And so that's a problem. And I said trilogy because I don't count the fourth one. Can it be one movie? Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. That is one movie. Mm-hmm. That feels like one concise story. Back to the Future does, and the Before trilogy. So at the end of it, now I'm judging which one has the best movies at that point. Damn if it ain't close between Lord of the Rings and the Before trilogy. Seriously,
which
they're
is
that good.
Hysterical, because one was actually filmed in secret over a month. The other one is one of the biggest budgeted films of all time.
Yes, they couldn't be any different. They couldn't be. But that being said, there's nothing like the Before trilogy. Period.
Right.
I mean, there's not. I don't know what else to say. I'm almost like kind of apprehensive about talking about it too much, unless there are questions. Because we haven't talked about
that's the thing, because we talked about Sunset off mic, but Midnight we did a very small talk about it. It's just like so when we talk about them as whole films, and we talk about what Linklater did, and this one especially with Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. I mean, these are the three behind those films, not just because it's actor and director. It's because these three put their heart and soul into crafting these characters and their viewpoints and how they talk and what happened to them in the past 9 years.
They get writing credit on.
They do
on
the sequels.
Sequels,
because they did it. They wrote every line together, and every line is written out.
Which it's hard to believe because it feels so natural and it feels like improvisation.
So Before Midnight, this is such a weird thing because I've only watched it the once in theaters. I also bought the trilogy. I'm showing my girlfriend the films, and it's very easy to kind of go, Before Sunrise, oh, it's so wonderful. Before Sunset, yay. Before Midnight, I think it's amazing. I still can picture full, complete scenes in my memory of watching in theaters those years ago. But it's watching Mommy and Daddy fight.
Yeah.
And it's a tough one, but it's the absolute next chapter.
It's
genius,
and that's progression of relationships in life, and especially these characters. We know these characters. We know eventually they're going to have to. Some of the differences in their personalities are eventually going to come to a head. Mm-hmm. Okay, you can't fall in love forever. Yeah. At some point, you have to be in love, and that is a very, very, very different thing. And as it's accented wonderfully by Celine in Before Midnight, it's wiping your pee off the toilet seat. It's wiping you and your son's pee off the toilet seat. That's the nitty-gritty of it. That's the relationship part of it. That the first two films don't have the challenge of having to acknowledge, because one of those is them falling in love, the other one is them picking it up.
Yeah, they're re-meeting each other.
Yes,
and that's something so special. And Before Midnight, I mean, I didn't breathe the last half hour of that movie in that hotel room scene. But then the last scene, again, it's crazy that I've forgotten character names of the movie I watched yesterday, but I could tell you so much about them sitting on those chairs outside the hotel room. It's incredible. It is my least favorite of the three, but that's what does that really mean? Yeah, exactly.
It's
something that it's crazy that it's a bold movie they made. They could have easily done Hepburn and Tracy doing yada yada yada.
Yeah, sure.
But instead, they go for this. They never betray the characters, and that's Linklater's core, right? It's to embrace. I don't know what the next Before film looks like. I hope they make it, just because this is the greatest thing.
They kind of got to. I don't know.
Unless one of them dies.
Unless one of them dies, of course.
Yes, which they're not allowed to.
Yeah. So yeah, I feel dirty doing this, but I started doing it. So, Before Midnight's my least favorite.
Okay.
That the way I would order it is Before Before Sunset, Before Sunrise, and Before Midnight. That's my order of the films as far as what I like, but that could change literally next year, and it may have to do with where I am in my life right now because I'm closest to age to them and Before Sunset. So,
and it did change for me because for the longest time Sunrise was my favorite, but rewatching Sunset now, that might be my favorite because this was my first time being older than them for Sunrise.
Yeah, okay.
And I still adore the film so much, but I'm now getting closer to Sunset's age.
And I'm almost saying I'm 3 years younger than they are in that. So,
and I'm like 14. So like and part of like when I first saw Sunrise when I was in high school, it was so much almost like also idolizing what's to come in a way as well, and it was just so cool to do it because Linklater is 10 years older than them. So he's always looking back while the actors are doing it. I love him.
Yeah, no, okay. So Sunset for me in particular, yes, to that, and then for Sunset for me, it's so they fall in love in Sunrise, but Sunset is that just falling in love isn't always a good thing. Mm-hmm. And this is the first movie to really acknowledge that in a real way without being, creepy or like cheesy. They would be better off if they didn't love each other. This is going to be complicated. And Sunset acknowledges that in a really beautiful way. Like, he has a wife now. He has children. He doesn't live,
So, we talked about this off air, but I forgot your answer. When did you notice the ring on his finger?
Not until he mentioned that he had.
Me too.
Because I couldn't. Yeah, I got spoilers big time here, but it just.
We warned him.
We warned him. Okay, yeah. But it's just. But that's kind of what I loved about it because I don't really ever see a movie acknowledge that. You have people fight about the relationships and break up and fall apart. You have people come together and fall in love, but you rarely have a movie acknowledges the problems with falling in love. The inability to stifle that emotion. Like, it's a cross to bear. It can be a cross to bear. It's a great thing that they find each other, but that doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's not going to be complicated. The literal logistics of their relationship are damn near impossible.
Yeah, and that is so much of the reality is there, and I love also, because we talked about in our Before Sunrise review, how it was one night we decided to be brutally honest, because why not? Mm-hmm. Slade is lying for a lot of Sunsets.
Yeah.
And it's great, because...
He's lying, too. He does. He acknowledges some truths that maybe she doesn't, but...
Right. He is lying by omission.
Yeah.
By a lot.
Mm-hmm.
She is straight up saying things like, no, we didn't have sex. He goes... Yes, we did.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring up that lying by omission because that's how he sleeps at night. That's how he's able to. That's how he's able to deal with the fact that he's been in love with Celine for years. Mm-hmm. I've been in situations before where I've had feelings for someone else while I was with someone else, and when you're in those situations, it is a very much like you do a lot of the lying by omission. You just do. It's a way to enjoy your feelings, but also not letting the reality complicate things. It's that middle ground that you do to yourself, and that doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
But that struggle is kind of getting at what I'm talking about, which I think elevates, not even elevates, because I could love Midnight Tomorrow more, but that's why I liked it.
I feel I might, yeah.
Also, it has one of my favorite endings, like, ever. Yeah. The ending to Before Sunset is incredible.
Yep.
Like, it's absolutely incredible. It didn't need a sequel. But it does. It's like the weird thing.
Funny. You texted me early where you go, this is great, but it's not as romantic as the first one. I was thinking, you're not at the end yet. I know, you haven't finished this.
Well, but that was good too, because they're grown up. Like,
yes.
It's a different type of romance.
Absolutely.
They've been hurt more now. They're different people. They're hardened. And, I know this whole 5 turned into this conversation, but
it was bound to.
We didn't acknowledge 2 of Linklater's best films. I mean, if we were doing that, I would have taken Slacker and School of Rock off and just added two other before movies. So
Gotta show that range.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
and I understand that.
Yeah, those 5 would be my 5-star films.
Yeah, so doing this 5 has brought me the gift, which is the Before trilogy. So thank you, Austin, for that.
Thank you, Linklater.
And thank you, Linklater, for that. Truly, wow, just incredible stuff. Really incredible stuff.
All right. Enough of this small-time people who talk without wearing armor.
Okay, so
where are we going to go next?
Yeah, okay, so this is my 5, I guess.
This is a more experimental one.
We will gain viewers or lose viewers on this.
You
I feel
betcha.
like. This is a stuffy podcast sometimes. We're talking about art, the art immortal, the arts.
I'm charismatic. What are you talking about?
No, but I mean, we're covering Boyhood. We're talking about sense. I mean, come on, we got to. It's like it can sound a little pretentious. So
hey, wait for my next 5.
And we're gonna go there. Okay, after that, but we're gonna knock down some walls here, and we're gonna bend some rules of the podcast, but not break them.
Yep.
The next 5 that we are going to cover is the Super 5. And in that, we are covering superhero movies. So how do you show off excellence and range? Because, a lot of superhero movies are bad. Some directors do good ones. Some directors do bad ones. There's not a director out there that's done five superhero movies worthy of talking about. That doesn't exist. And then you don't want to limit your scope by talking about a brain trust like Marvel or DC or whatever, because you don't want to limit comic book movies. You don't want to put a pigeonhole them like that. So what we've done is we picked 5 movies, and we're going to explain why we picked them after each one and how we sort of threaded that needle. So bear with me. So here comes the Super 5. The first film we're going to cover is Superman, the original one, Christopher Reeve, Gene Hackman. It's a good movie, but it's the first real big comic book movie, and it's the most iconic comic book character, whether we like it or not. That's just the way it is. It's Superman. Do you want anything to add to that? Because you helped thread these needles as well.
Right. I mean, I'm going to do a little more research going into this to make sure I know what I'm talking about. But the Superman, especially Superman, those 4 films with Christopher Reeve, it wasn't just kind of one person behind them. It was come for the first 2. But it was a look at a big studio look at these comics, because they were like Batman, like cereals that cost like a half cent.
Of course.
But this was something of like, we're going to get an Academy Award winner in this. We're going to do this right, and we're going to
try to add some legitimacy to it. Yeah,
this was something new. As blockbusters are starting to begin in Hollywood.
Sure. And then, so we'll have that. Then we're going to do Batman 89, because that changed comic book movies. That changed Batman because of The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller comic, and then from that, Batman is supposed to be a dark character. So Batman 89 comes out by Tim Burton, and from there, you get the flood, that idea of being dark and gritty, that comes from Batman. In fact, The Crow, which is a fine superhero movie in its own right, comes out. Its slogan for the film was "darker than the bat." So this creates something, and then eventually it's squandered away, and we'll talk about that too. The next movie we'll cover is The Dark Knight, because it's the best superhero movie, and it's transcendent. This is where we started labeling movies not as comic book movies necessarily, but as crime thrillers, or it transcended the genre. It truly did.
Yeah.
This was IMDb's #1 movie for a long time, and I still believe it's in the top 10. Okay, this movie left a serious impression.
You've probably seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. We'll talk about that. Captain America: Civil War was your addition to this, so.
Yeah, I recommend this one because we're going to look at different eras of superhero films and cinema. The one that will be the most lasting thing, perhaps, in film history books for a while is what the hell Marvel's doing right now. Not saying that any Marvel film is better than The Dark Knight, because there isn't one, but they're now making the most expensive TV show ever made, which now has like 14 or like 15 interconnected films.
Yeah.
And this is the not most recent one, because there was Doctor Strange recently. This one has like 20 superheroes fighting each other that they've now set up for the past decade. Mm-hmm. That's bonkers.
That's bonkers. And when you say TV show, what he means is not actual TV show.
Right.
He means that it's being run like we have episodes, essentially.
Every
now.
Avengers film is the season finale.
Yeah.
And you're having $200 million episodes leading up to those.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And it just the sheer pop of it all. Like, it's just integrated culture so much that it's impossible to ignore when you talk about superhero movies, and it will be forever.
And they haven't had a bomb yet.
They haven't had a bomb yet.
And they have the next 5-6 years planned out.
Which is insane.
Yes.
And then we'll wrap up with Logan. Logan is interesting in a couple ways. It's the end of the era for Hugh Jackman, obviously, is Wolverine, but also it's the end of the era for the X-Men films. Some are good, some are bad. None of them are as good as Logan, I'll tell you that right now. So as a capstone to what that did, because after the fall of the Batman movies with the Tim Burton sequel and then the Joel Schumacher films, X-Men was the movie that said, no, wait, hold on. These can be good. These can be taken seriously. And that's not a movie I like very much, but it's a movie that I think we have to tip our hat to in that regard.
Oh, yeah, 2000's X-Men caused major ripples of how studios treated comic books. Because at this point, we'll talk more about this at the time, but Batman and Robin wasn't too long before that.
No.
Batman and Robin is a joke.
It's dreadful.
It's a joke, but also doesn't resemble any of the comics that it's adapting. Mm-hmm. X-Men was Bryan Singer's own take on it, but it felt like an X-Men comic. Mm-hmm. And then from there, it had some better films and some worse films. Mm-hmm. And Bryan Singer is still randomly involved with X-Men, but I have not seen Logan. The first one.
I was going to say, so it's special in that way because it's the only film that we've ever picked so far that Austin has not seen.
Yeah. In my defense, it's still in theaters. I've been busy this month.
God, I really liked it. I can't wait to rank these when we get to the wrap-up. So not getting ahead of ourselves, just to recap, we're going to cover the original Christopher Reeve Superman, then we're going to do Tim Burton's Batman 1989, then we're going to jump to The Dark Knight, then Captain America Civil War, and then finally wrap up with Logan, which is, once you see the film, that's just as appropriate as Boyhood being the wrap-up, or the final one that we covered for Linklater.
So going in, I'm excited about two things. One, the weird idea about having one episode not only represent the movie itself, but its era. Mm-hmm. But also, I think, because you have more of a longer investment than I do in this genre, I want to see how each of these represents what a superhero means in storytelling. Because I think... from the four I've seen, each of these are actually quite distinctively different about what the role of superhero is in culture.
Yeah, and they're so representative of their era in the way, and they stand as sort of the landmarks of their era, and except for Logan, which doesn't, which is utterly appropriate, as it's an end of an era. So I just think that, We'll get there, right? We'll get there. We'll talk about it. We bent the rules a little bit, but it's going to be interesting.
I'm very excited.
It's going to be really interesting.
And I don't want to date this recording, but we need to stop because the Legion finale is on tonight, and I need to get back to that.
Okay.
So, you can listen to our Superman episode in 2 days. It's going to be very exciting. Thank you for... joining us through Richard Linklater, and now it's time for I have to know whether or not I'll believe a man can fly. We'll find out.
So is that what we leave it with?
Is that the tagline?
Yeah. My name's Eric Martindale.
I'm Austin Luger.
And we'll catch you next time.
Wrap up.
Birdman sucks.
Right? You know when you meet somebody, and you see it in their eyes, an originality of thought.
Right.
When I sat down, forget Boyhood for a second, even talk about Before Sunrise. When I read the original script of Before Sunrise, I didn't really like it. It was two people talking in a train for hours. I make fun of Rick about this, but he acts like it's not true or something. But there literally was like a 5-page monologue where my character talked about what a great film John Huston's The Dead was.
Yes.
And it is a great film, but that's not you can't. I was saying to him, you can't make a movie where all I do is talk about how great another movie is. And I remember Rick going, why not?
Why not?
Yeah. But anyway, and so I was talking about, and then we had this meeting in New York and to talk about it, and I remember he said, listen, let me be really clear. I don't care about whether you talk about John Huston's The Dead or whether you talk about Meister Eckhart. Another thing I was making fun. There was another long monologue about Meister Eckhart, which I'm still not sure I pronounced correctly. But anyway, he said, I don't care what we talk about. It was a beautiful thing he said, which was that he said, I've never been in a gunfight. I've never been involved in espionage. I've never been involved in a helicopter crash or something. And yet I feel like my life has been full of drama. And the most dramatic thing that's ever happened to me is really connecting with another human being. Like when you really connect, you feel like your life is different. You know, there's a connection, he says. And I want to make a movie about that connection.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow. He goes, so I just need you to give yourself over to this completely, and I need to find a scene partner for you who can do it too. And that's an original, like, when you see that in somebody's eyes, and and you go, I believe in you. Right. So when you pull it off, and then the guy comes to you and says, I keep thinking about how we can make a movie about growing up. You go, okay, let's do it.